And you guys, I just wanted to mention that, we're still one of the only sources on the left covering these elections, whereas everybody's swallowing this narrative that it's just, Republicans cheating every single time. Of course Republicans cheat. We know they cheat. Their tactics are voter suppression, etc. None of this is new. The fact, however, is that both parties also cheat, and both parties have rigged elections continuously. And once you realize that your vote, you didn't really vote to elect Joe Biden. The empire has chosen Joe Biden. And when you realize that, there comes this immense cognitive dissonance in a lot of people, where a lot of people lash out at you and they're like, how dare you say that? No, democracy. It's like, what democracy are you fighting for? Democracy of putting a bunch of spooks in government? Democracy of censoring people who think differently than you? I do not like the right-wing ideology in any way, shape, or form. But if I'm going to combat that ideology, I want to be able to do it in a public forum. I want to be able to show people how wrong somebody is. You don't get there by literally censoring people. And that's a whole other thing that we're going to see encroaching on our whole lives now. And that's part of it. And it's also another thing that's part of it is this whole dilemma that I'm going to be talking about, Pasta, that somehow we voted fascism out. You can't vote fascism out when you don't have election integrity in this country, number one. Number two, fascism is not something you can simply vote out. It is embedded in the very fabrics of our society and the very foundations of this country. And we're going to be talking more about that throughout the show.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of talks with people about solutions and what do we do moving forward, and how do we get out of this? And I'm going to also still talk about these elections when it comes to the right cheating, and we're going to go over this too as well at the end of the first section. The ways they traditionally cheated, but the power they needed. Political powers mean a lot. You need to fix election. You need friends in all different types of places to put all your to pull off your tricks. And the talk that's been going on with the purging of the voter rolls, which is kind of like a little bit of a messed up conversation. We'll talk a little bit.
It happens.
Yeah,
but it happens to progressives
as
too.
Well.
Maria Estrada is one that has been talking about the purging of the voter rolls here in LA. And it literally purged a lot of people in her district, and that was the Democrats doing that too.
And
so
we witnessed it too.
Exactly. So don't say that it's just the right doing it.
Yeah. And it's in a very messy area because when you talk about the voter rolls, there's a lot of people that are on those voter rolls that shouldn't be on those voter rolls. We have to come up with a system. And that's why yesterday I talked to a gentleman by the name of David Weber, fam. Mm-hmm. David Weber is a computer scientist, a software programmer. But more importantly, David Weber is implemented what he calls open standards, which are the same thing as open source systems overseas. Mm-hmm. He even for 3 cycles in Virginia implemented a mail-in open source system that is sound, because what we did, if you understand elections, we said this from the get-go, and we've been saying this several months ago, how the Democrats tipped themselves off that they were going to cheat through the mail-in, one of the techniques. And obviously we always knew about the flipping of the software, just the sheer fact, fam, that the software is proprietary. I don't know why that hasn't woken up anybody in 4 years, especially after primary after primary of Bernie Sanders getting cheated, when we can see this with the naked eye going, that's wrong. Those votes right there, something is going on. We did some math, we showed it. Now there's mathematicians doing this stuff and showing this. But the fact, fam, that the software itself is proprietary and people just can't grasp around your head like, this is no good. We don't know who was cheated and when it's cheated, and we can't even look at the software. People have used terminology to try to get your mind in there, progressives, like black box voting. Understand what that means. We can't see. No transparency. And there's going to be some good news today, fam, because it looks like the right is learning the way they're classifying stuff. In fact, you're going to see later on, I don't want to spoil the surprise, but you're going to be wow, way to learn on how we classify things. Our language means something, right? We talk about the words voter fraud and election fraud. Well, we're going to get to that later on. But back to this whole system when it comes to the software, we've been talking, and David Weber has worked with open standard systems before. Mm-hmm. He understands the game. And I really wanted to talk to him because I didn't want to just be calling out the problems that we've been talking about for years that are now coming to the forefront. Like the shit has finally risen to the top, Bobbles. But what are the solutions? Because there's been solutions that have been talked about, fam, and been pushed aside. Yep. So I got David Weber on the phone for a little conversation. and we'll go into it. And the first part, this is David Weber, and you guys, it's the video's gotten a little traction. It's really cool. It's how to flip an election with David Weber. Go and check it out. We had a little Zoom conversation, and I kind of clipped it up and put it up. So David Weber, he starts talking about the open source mail-in system in Virginia that he worked in, and this is a big solution moving forward. We have to understand that, okay, after we come out of this, what do we do moving forward? There are already solutions on the table. We talk about the big sleep. All those people went to sleep. Well, in the background, you didn't see the election integrity activists. We're like, we ain't sleeping for nothing. We know what you did. We know what the Democratic Party did to Bernie, and you're going to do it again, and we're going to catch you when you did it. So let's get into this video. It presents solutions, fam, and I'm interested to see what you guys think about this, because you guys know about this subject. Let's watch.
Yes. Well, people can go and find the design that was done for DoD FVAP for these mail-in ballots. And there was a whole workflow around ensuring that the person requesting, and you actually have to go in and request to get the ballot.
Yes.
And then they verify your information, and then they notify you that here's the link to the download, and you can go in and download the ballot, print it off, fill it out, mail it back.
Got it.
So now you've got multiple levels of trust and verification going on there, as you can see immediately, right?
Yeah. This is the system you worked with in Virginia, or no? Or kind of like it? Yes. Okay.
Yes. No,
seems logical.
This was a overall design that FVAP and DoD did to justify, because this was the first time it was being done.
Yeah.
Ballots, people being able to download them, print them off, and mail them in, making sure they get the correct ballot.
Yes, but they had to go in person and request it, right?
The ballot's different.
Yeah. But you're saying in your situation, they had to go in and request it in person to get that ballot. So we know that they had to once in person verify that ballot. Where did they go in and fill that out to get that?
It was online, and FVAP have a form for that, which is used by the military and these overseas voters.
Got it.
And you verify all your information, and you mail that in. And of course, we were doing that digitally, because the whole premise here is, for the military, these are people who are putting their lives on the line daily.
Yeah.
And they deserve to get their vote cast and counted more than anybody else.
Yeah. Okay, so fam, what he was is doing a system, and we were working with the veterans overseas, and they wanted to implement a program that was safe and secure, where, once again, not too many of these ballots go out, they don't get to the wrong hands. And when he said you got to go in, I thought he was like, you have to go in person. He was like, no, you have to go into the system, and it creates a link where you can verify all your information, and then you print out your ballot. And your QR code is specific to the ballot you print out, so you can't print out more. And it's just one of those ways. I was like, well, how could we have done this? And
but how is that? Is that like, can people track their ballot? Can they see
all that stuff? Yeah, and go to the interview, guys, and watch a little bit more, because he goes into detail. But yes, you can track your ballot. It's a unique QR code for each ballot, so therefore you can't make multiple ballots, whatnot, and it won't be out of control where you just send out all these ballots. Because not the ballots in California. We talk about the ballots.
We had a QR code in those too.
But the QR code was, and I asked several times, it's just specific to the district you're in where you're voting. So in other words, it just tells you that it's supposed to be counted in that district. That's what that QR code is. It's not a specific one to the individual.
I see.
And now I'm trying to find out the ballots from Michigan and Wisconsin. From what I understand, some of those ballots in some of the areas, some do, but a lot of them don't have QR codes in it. It's just a regular kind of ballot with a name in, so it can be duplicated. It can be counted multiple times through the machines.
So these are open source.
Open source.
That where people could see. And the only other thing I would add is counting publicly, like having like a system where people watch these ballots being counted.
Oh, absolutely. He talks briefly real quick. I just want him to talk about, and now this is a guy who's been in elections for so long. We talked about the mail-in system, like, wow, this is going to be out of control if they do this. I just want an expert to give his opinion on it real quick, and just listen to what David Weber says about this.
Good check. But compare and contrast that
to what we did.
To sending out millions of ballots just in a shotgun to mailboxes across a state with zero control.
Yeah.
You know, what the heck? Who knows who is getting those and what is happening to them? And there's no correlation one-to-one. I mean, the immediate thing that jumps out at me is that when you're print delivering these ballots, you know, we're all familiar with QR codes.
Yeah.
Amazon uses them, you know, etc. You can put a unique QR code on, so you're not necessarily identifying the voter, but you're at least identifying that this is a legitimate ballot that we have verified and delivered to the right person. And when it comes back in, we can check that QR code and make sure that somebody hasn't photocopied it and run off 1,000 copies of it and sent in 1,000 of them.
So once again, he's talking about unique QR codes, which are not, like, say, some states don't use QR codes. We do, but are they unique? You know, I keep asking him every single time. Did you ask last time you voted, Johnny? I asked too. I said, what is this QR code for? And she goes, that's just to identify the district that you're voting in so we know where to tabulate it properly. So, you know, a lot of people were complaining that if it's a unique QR code, they want to make sure that they can't identify the voter because, once again, you know, we talk about the divides, fam. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's as much as it is. The biggest divide, in other words, is politically. They want to be able to politically disavow ballots. If the Democrats know who the Bernie Sanders supporters are, they can eliminate those ballots. So I know a lot of people were questioning the QR codes, you know, as Bernie Sanders people, like, are they going to be able to legitimately find us and make sure that our vote's not counted? So we talk about the system with David Weber, and he says the paper ballots that are mailed out everywhere are just, they were ridiculous. They shouldn't have shotgunned these out. There's no control. And he thinks about this system that he invented with his small team 10 years ago, and they had the plug pulled on them by Microsoft. Microsoft came in, lobbied the state legislator, and kicked them out. So therefore, the system that they had tested on veterans and overseas voters was successful, but was never used.
Of course. So. It wasn't. Johnny, did you need to say anything? Okay.
This is the part right here I had a moment, fam, because, you know, you start thinking about the 300 and something odd million, right, John? And Johnny knows about this stuff. And we start talking about the paper companies. Well, he goes, well, the paper companies is another financial scam because the paper companies have to work in conjunction with the tabulation companies to make sure that their ballots can be applicable in their machine. So therefore that you have to use these paper companies. Because I was saying, why the hell are we using a company in Washington? Well, it's another scam for money. Oh, you got to use this company because they make ballots that work in our machines, that are adaptable to our machines. So now they charge them a hell of a lot of crazy money. We know what K&H got. K&H is the paper is the printer vendor for the ballots. And David also explained to me in the interview that just like the tabulation machines, ES&S, Hart, Smartmatic, Dominion, all these names that we've been saying for years, you know what I'm saying, the paper companies are the similar and they work in conjunction, and it's a financial scheme. They can also suck out a ton of monies. So when a lot of people talk about elections, how do we save money? This money costs too much. Here's a moment where he talks about his mail-in system eliminates the third-party paper company, and I was like, wow, if you can present that to a legislation where we're going to save a ton of money now, that's great. So this is David talking about that. It's why we would go all the way to Washington. But this particular company is almost like Dominion and ES&S in the sense that you really don't know who owns them. It's a subsidiary company of another zombie company of another company. However, what you explained to me, a company like K&H that we use in Los Angeles and our tabulation machines in Smartmatic have to be compatible with each other because the Smartmatic machine will only take a ballot from K&H that is acceptable by the Smartmatic machine. So they have to work with each other somehow, correct?
Correct. And this was another thing that we kind of broke the mold of when we did the system for Virginia and the various other states. Because this was a nice little money earner for these election companies producing these ballots. And of course, what we were doing with the FAP system is dynamically printing these ballots straight out of your printer. So no third parties needed. The computer software rendered the ballot exactly as the state required.
You eliminate the paper company.
You eliminate them.
That's great. That's a ton of money saved.
Ton of money saved.
Wow. Wow, David, no. I mean, the fact is like, we talk about the chain of custody. We talk about elections. How about eliminating the company that just prints the ballots, that can print them out like confetti, and it's connected in directly with the software and the machines we're using right there? We got to get that straight in a second. But what you're saying, in your system, you eliminated the paper company. People just have to go print their own ballots, and it's all secure.
Yep. And it's computed.
David, I'm having a moment. Like, really, I had a moment. I was like, that's amazing. I'm like, we can do this, and it's secure, and it's safe.
Because what about a paper trail, though?
That is a paper trail. You print it out.
Yeah,
right?
But then you get rid of it.
Well, that's the thing. If you try to get rid of it and you try to print it again, the system won't let you print it again. You have to go through another format to get it printed again. So how is that
a paper trail if you have to...
Well, it prints out. Now your QR code is, then you send it off with tracking, and it's tracked. And then when they receive it, they know that it's an actual paper trail. When it was printed, when it left, when it got to you, the whole 9 yards. The whole system is secure. The main thing is fam, and I can't remember, John, how much we were paying K&H. And I think there was a clause, like in the second paragraph of that contract, that said they can get more money from us. Millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's a scam. All the vendors are involved, and they're getting greased. And that is something I think right here. I mean, we at least, I don't know if this is the system that works, but I would like to look more into this system.
You're telling me that in a capitalist country that they're going to use capitalist methods to run our elections?
Yeah,
exactly. We privatize every freaking industry. Do you not think we're going to privatize the
elections?
Come on.
I know, but people don't even realize it's like everybody's involved. Everybody's got their hands. There's money's being handed out hand over foot. The last part, when it comes to David Weber, the last two parts. The glitch, okay? Yeah. I want to talk about the glitch real quick, because the glitch is really, really important, because there were two major glitches in which election workers said something's going wrong here. Mm-hmm. The votes are not being tallied. Oh, they went in, it was a glitch. So he describes the glitch in detail of what went on. So he tells you what they did. So in on that.
Yeah. So one of the things that we did in that software and that open source approach was to build the entire ballot dynamically. So depending on what contest you were, whether you were voting for in the Senate race or the county race or the whatever, it was all produced dynamically. So it's not an issue for us. Okay.
Yeah.
And we got the updates, put them in, and the software is ready to roll.
Gotcha.
So now fast forward to Pennsylvania, and Dominion telling us that they had a glitch and the people didn't apply the right update. So they had voting machines that were not using the right template for the ballot. And that caused races to be skewed because ballots were being counted incorrectly. So let's just think about that whole scenario. Mm-hmm. So if you can imagine, I'll just use my hand here. If I put a race in here or a proposal in here, everything is now moved down one.
Gotcha.
Okay.
4 becomes 5.
Using the old,
yeah.
So if I'm using the old definition, Republican just became Democrat, Democrat just became Republican, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Gotcha.
So now we were told that this wasn't Dominion's fault, and it was just human error, and it's a glitch. And I'm looking at that as an election integrity person and saying, oh my goodness, they complain about the Chinese and back doors, and here is a gigantic ocean liner sized back door. Okay? Because what the software should be doing when these results are being tallied is it should be verifying the version of the ballot against the latest version number. And if it doesn't match, that's an error. A red flag pops up. and somebody has to go and investigate and fix it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was not doing that is a major issue.
Yeah.
And it's not a software glitch issue. It's not a human error glitch issue. It's a software design and integrity issue.
So the programming issue is pretty much, they didn't program it right.
Absolutely, 100%.
So he kind of explained the glitch. And remember, I think there was that Viva La Fry video that a lot of people talked about that he read. He's like, look at these jerk-offs. You can expose them in their own writing and the mental gymnastics they play to try to say it wasn't a human error, but it was a human error. And they tiptoe around it. And he's like, no, it's a software and integrity error over here. You guys are playing games. You're leaving back doors open. He said an ocean liner back door, and you're flipping. You're deceiving the public with your proprietary software.
And why listen to the New York Times? It was lied to you countless times.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand that sort of hypocrisy with progressives. Like, oh, all of a sudden you're going to listen to New York Times, Nancy Pelosi, CIA, MSNBC, Washington Post, all these people who are in complete agreement in trying to dismiss this as not fraud, as a complete Trumpian thing to say.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Trump, he has said a lot of lies, so obviously this is what they're counting on. They are counting on you believing that just because he lies all the time, that he's lying about this. The thing is, this isn't about him. This has been a problem that has infested our whole country for decades and decades and decades, and the right is just realizing it because now they're on the other side where they're being wronged. And we're like, hello, this is how it's felt for us for a long time. Now, welcome to the fight. Nice to meet you. Now, do it the right way. Listen to people like this guy who are nonpartisan, who are literally telling you, hey, I designed programs. I did this 10 years ago. Like, this is what we have to do. Stop freaking making this about ideology. This is about our country as a whole, period.
Amen, sister. Because I'd sent somebody a message. I said, oh, now the right is finally joining the party.
Right.
Welcome. But, not for nothing, fam. And I know Johnny can attest to this since he's been here. We've been talking about election integrity, breaking it down to the sources since he's come here, before he's come here. Niko, who we happened to team up with the whole Jared Beck case, the first time he went on Jimmy Dore, he went on as election integrity activist to talk about that case. These are things we've been talking about for a long time. Mainly, the main thing, the proprietary software. The power doesn't lie with those who cast a vote. The power lies with those who count the votes.
Gangs of New York.
And and now like people are saying, look at these quotes. I'm like, I haven't shut up about that quote for about 2 freaking years because I've been trying to get you guys to see, and we've been trying to get you guys to see, hey, listen, they cheated Bernie. And I believe the super chat right here, it says right here, David. Bernie, thank you for the super chat contribution. He says Bernie would be the new president if he would have fought, but he's too insecure and needs approval from the neoliberal crooks. So he surrendered to them. And that is the truth. I mean, the fact that he's going on and saying stuff, it's like,
we're going to talk about Bernie.
I mean, you can't sit there and say, I don't want to jump into it. You can't say you're for everybody's vote and you're not going to stand up and fight for it, especially today. And a lot of things changed in 2004. And this goes back to Clint Curtis and stuff. When George Bush, he won a second election. The first election he won was in the cross-reference list in Florida by purging people from the voting rolls by using a cross-reference list of felons that couldn't vote. Common names of those people who were arrested could not vote. And he struck a lot of people from the voter rolls. Different story this time out, but that is one of the ways it happened. 2004, Ohio, flipping votes. They went in there. They looked at the software. They found out the people were crying in Ohio because they realized they had verified an election that probably wasn't right. Yep. And since then, it's been about an all-out war. Who can cheat better? Yep. Republicans or Democrats? And the Democrats have been using these tools of the proprietary software. And more importantly, they've been using them in their primaries to cheat progressives. That's the main reason why we've been crazy. The main reason why we went nuts is we felt that he didn't get the votes and he got it cheated. More or less, it's very easy to spot this stuff now, fam, because we've been looking in the right areas. Now we talk about, before we get to this, do you want to say anything about the glitch?
No, go ahead.
Patterns, the way the patterns of the votes come in, right? Mm-hmm. Texas, how it swung so quickly. Michigan, how they call for Biden at 54%, because patterns of votings usually stay general. So these abnormal ballots coming, or these abnormal counts for Biden in the middle of the night, they just make zero sense. So let's talk about patterns real quick with David Weber.
Yep. So, I mean, we're looking at percentages here. and saying, so far 56% of people have voted this way and 42% have voted that way, and this has a 100,000 lead. So if that same pattern continues with the rest of the ballots, then there's no way that this is going to be able to change the election result and the outcome. And we have fun things, because I remember it was back in the Bush era, up in the Northeast, there was an election where it was midnight and the result was XYZ. And what was amazing was that the digital results hadn't been tallied and brought in. And you'd think it would be the reverse, right?
Yeah.
The counties that were counting by hand with paper ballots would be still counting, and the
digitals would be in quickly.
Yeah. And lo and behold, the digital records came in with a 17% shift in the balloting trend, and that reversed the election at that point. Does this sound familiar?
It sounded like what happened the other day. It sounded.
And here's the double whammy. Here's the good bit. So a lot of these states with these digital systems, they said they've enacted laws where they say, if it's within 5% of a result, so the total ballots are within 5%, then we need to do an audit, and we need to do, look at things to make sure that the result will stand. So what that tells somebody that is looking at this is, if you're going to cheat, if you're going to, go out there, make sure you cheat big, because that way they won't check it.
The 5%, yeah. So
right.
You can see him laughing hysterically. We were talking about this.
Yeah.
Fam, we saw this and we're like, there's no way he could catch up. But if you're going to cheat big. And what he talked about, a scenario where they counted by hand, it's on point. And when you count digitally coming in, it's like, wait a second. So
it is just very devastating to me and sad that the vast majority of the left, including progressives, including many of our friends, have bought into this lie that this is something to scoff at. Oh, there's no way. The real story is that, the purging with the Republicans doing it, Trump's minions cheating. It's just, to me, it is very, very sad that you've managed to be this duped, because you're following along with what everybody else is saying, and it takes a fucking backbone to actually stand up and be like, you know what, we're going to look at this without our emotions. We're going to look at this logically and see that these elections have not been fair for a long time. So actually, going even just by that logic, thinking that this election is going to be any different is ludicrous. It is absolutely ludicrous. And the mainstream media has been the main manipulator, getting everybody, including progressives, to fall in victims into this thing where it's like, well, we're just going to buy what they're saying just this one time because we hate Donald Trump so much. It's like, you can hate Donald Trump all you want, but this something happened here. And all these experts are pointing it out, not just us.
Fam, this particular, I'm glad you said that with the whole voter rolls and the whole, because it has happened before. In 2000, it was disgusting. It was the most racist thing I've ever seen. People like Mike Jones, who were arrested and had a felony. Anybody who had the name Mike Jones couldn't vote. They purged him. And it has been done before, and that was the Bush Klan. We talked about that. So to say it hasn't been done before is inaccurate.
Absolutely has been done.
But we saw 2 points. Number one, we saw the Democrats do it to the progressives more than anything. I mean, me and Johnny, I think we were out in Eagle Rock, and we caught some people, and they're like, listen, we were on the voter rolls. We have the email right here. We see it. They took us off. They gave us provisional ballots. So we've seen it been used by the Democrats to say, what I'm saying? So you can't just push out one side and say, oh, the Republicans are doing it. It's racially motivated. They're purging people from the rolls. That's it. That's the real story here. We're missing that. Because when people do this analysis, they look about all these people who were removed from the rolls, but they don't equate in how many people come on the rolls. Right. And the whole second point I want to make when it comes to the rolls is that I think it's a disingenuous argument when you don't accept the fact that the rolls are dirty. People move. People die. Who in here, ladies and gentlemen, anybody watching, when you moved, you called the Board of Elections in your previous state and say, hey, man, take me off the voter rolls? It doesn't happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So it's really a disingenuous argument when you say that it's just done racially motivated. Not to say it hasn't happened, it couldn't
Absolutely
happen.
happens.
It has happened in the past, but to say this in an area where it's very cloudy, where we have to come up with situations, we have to come up with solutions to get this right. You know, I'm one of those people who feel that when you're 18, automatically rolled.
That's it.
If you're not on the rolls or whatever,
Voting
you
should
can
be a holiday.
Exactly. Automatic registration when you're there. I saw a lot of people in the 2020 primary in California get suppressed. Long lines. What's going on?
Yep.
Did we see that in the general? Did we see a lot of people calling in saying, hey, we weren't allowed to vote? We didn't see a lot of that.
No.
I didn't see enough. And if you do have that evidence of all these people getting purged and where they got purged, show us. But to make that blanket general statement that it's just racially motivated when it comes to the rolls, yes, there is people in there racially motivated to do this. But Donald Trump, once again, got more people of color of votes since any Republican since 1960.
Right.
So if those names were purged, why? If they were purged, then why did they show up for him? You know what I'm saying? I will argue this left and right. The biggest divide we have right now is a political tribal vibe, tribal divide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the divide. It's not, we see a lot of people of color who are Trump supporters now. We've actually seen gay people who are Trump supporters at these rallies from the LGBT people for Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? We see this now. So I don't think you can easily fix an election. And to think that Joe Biden was cheated out of millions of votes when he's almost 9 million more votes than Barack Obama is... It's really insane out there, and anybody who's trying to peddle this stuff,
9 million more votes than Barack Obama. Do you guys really buy that?
And he got and supposedly Trump's minions purged more people from Joe Biden, and that's the real story.
And he would have gotten how many more votes?
He would have got 12 million more than. I mean, this is insane that these people.
How
are
are
saying
you
this.
buying this, you guys? Seriously,
And
step aside. Like, how are you buying this?
Yeah, and believe you me, when we started up in the election integrity community, and we talked to a lot of people, you know what I'm saying. Across the board, fam, there are people who were not talking to each other, not working with each other. I was like, oh, the election integrity activists are just like the regular activists we see on the street.
Yeah, they fight each other.
They fight each other about stupid shit about lunch, but there's a divide there.
Yep.
And one group of people on this one side, in particular, where do they get their money from? Who are they working for? How are they motivated from? You know what I'm saying? This whole thought process that Biden and Trump's minions, and I'll say this again, Trump doesn't come from a political dynasty. George Bush can pull that off, fam. He's got friends in places. His father's been in politics for a long time. It's a family dynasty. You can pull it off.
Right.
The way Joe Biden cheated right now, once again, 47 years in politics, a big family. You can pull it off. Trump doesn't have those people. The Republicans, half the Republicans want him gone.
Yeah, the Republicans, that's it. His own party wants him gone, you guys. Like, this isn't, like, I mean, I'm not saying Donald Trump is a victim. I mean, he literally, he put himself in this situation, so to speak. But our election system, we are the victims of this election system.
And this is a red herring to think that the purging of the voter rolls is the big story that we're missing, that Biden didn't get enough votes. No. Get out of here. 92%. Some person said that the big purge was coming in Wisconsin. Well, Wisconsin had a 92% participation rate, fam. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love to see that happen. But if you believe that 92% of the people participated, I mean, come on, guys. Come on.
Off of like 40%?
I think the highest ever was 67% ever. They said in one race in Wisconsin they had a 73% participation rate in a local race or something.
In a local race,
but 92%.
Nah, that's just
where's the purge?
Improbable.
Where's the purge? I asked David Weber about the voter rolls. I put it up on a tweet, ladies and gentlemen. Just really quick here, and when I ask him about this thing, he knows exactly who I'm talking about. He laughs. Could we talk about a second about the voter rolls briefly? Because I think a lot of people. Talk about these voter rolls, and there's a group of people out there that are saying that the Republicans cheat by purging people from the voter rolls, and that they did it again, that if they didn't purge so many people this time, that Biden would have won by even a greater number. However, we look at these voter rolls and they are dirty as far as people who have moved on, people who have passed away and whatnot. Can you explain to us a little bit about the voter rolls?
But my sense is that these election rolls, I mean, each state has these what they call poll book systems, and you've seen these when you go to vote. They look you up,
yep,
and they check off that you've got your ballot and everything else. and to me, it seems like no. I mean, if you look at people getting married, divorced, moving house every 7 years on average, you've got this thrash constantly going on of people coming in and out of your state, and so at the end of the day, it's all going to be a wash. And
you mean when they take people off? When they
take people off, they add other people on. People are coming in and casting provisional ballots because they haven't had time to get onto the roll, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So to me, and how many thousand are we talking about? If it comes down to it, yes, it could possibly, if the election is really tight and you're talking about a few hundred votes. But at the end of the day, it's not like it's a Democrat or a Republican or a liberal or a Green candidate thing. Everybody's getting, a fair crack at that.
All right. So, David Weber, fam, your thoughts on that, on what he says about the voter rolls?
He's 100% right. I mean, this is a problem that we need to fix, and it shouldn't be, again, pinned to one certain ideology or looked as being non-democratic or looked as being an attempt to suppress democracy. This is like why our system is faulty. In fact, we should have people looking over the voter rolls, calling people. We should have the mainstream media being like, okay, you're going to be receiving a phone call or a text from so-and-so to verify where you live and blah, 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 just so you have no issues, blah, blah, blah. That should be something that should be talked about and done. That's not done for a reason. They don't want you to vote. They don't want your vote to count. Because it doesn't matter. At this point, they manipulate the elections. You voted for Bernie Sanders. Guess what? Chances are that vote didn't count. That vote went to Joe Biden, or that vote went to a provisional ballot, or whatever it is. There's just so many ways that this election system is bought. And the vast, I think, main issue here is that we don't control our elections. Corporations control our elections. Our elections are privatized. And if you don't believe that that's a problem, if you still think that somehow your vote's going to count in a democratic way when you and I and the people don't own our elections, well, I don't know what to tell you. Then we deserve to have what we have, because it just doesn't make logical sense.
Yep. Amber King also says why states like Alaska passed ranked choice voting and a supposed liberal state like Massachusetts couldn't come close.
Yep.
XO, heart fam, we love you, Amber King.
Thank you, Amber King.
For the Super Chat contribution, and our good friend Darren Levy. Thank you for the Super Chat contribution. Darren. It is always appreciated on this couch. It makes me think that Bernie was a willing participant in the fraud and sham of 2 rigged primaries. Compare him to AMLO, who has refused to acknowledge Biden as the winner, as AMLO himself suffered from election fraud. And AMLO fought it the first time, and they put in safeguards so the second time when things came around, he won. But he had to fight it. And Bernie Sanders did not fight it. We know, everybody in this room here knows a little bit more than others, because we've talked to people in the community, we've talked to people who've been screwed, that Bernie Sanders had an opportunity to protest these primaries and didn't. He chose not to. He had the money, he had the resources, he had the lawyers ready to go to seize the data, to open this shit up, and he chose not to. And that is, you have to question why. I'd like to think, because I love Bernie and the way he made us move, that it was because he lacked the political will. Or I don't want to see anybody threatened, but if he was threatened, that makes a little bit more sense the way he kind of turned and acted. But it's food for thought, fam. Why didn't he fight this tooth and nail to make sure that everybody's vote counts?
I mean, look at what they're doing to Donald Trump. You know what I mean? I think part of it was also the fear of being Ralph Nadered, and I know that for sure. But at the same time, it's also just look at what we're doing to people. Anybody that talks about election integrity in a nonpartisan way, look at how we vilify them, how we call them names and all this other crap. This issue, and right now, it should be made a huge issue, regardless of Trump, regardless of I think Biden is going to take this, because they don't want Donald Trump in there, and they're making that very clear. So that's regardless of it. In a few years, you're going to want to get a progressive in there. You're going to run into the same freaking bullshit, the same bullshit over and over again. And more people are going to be completely done with the system, and they're not going to vote. Why do you think so many people don't vote? People don't believe in the system, and that's part of it as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy. proprietary software,
Yep.
black box voting. We can't see it. We own these elections. This is our elections. Open source, transparency, audits, hand-counted audits in public, all those. There's so many ways we can fix the elections. All the election integrity activists are in place. And, you know, the great thing about Dr. Shiva's video the other day, we kind of referenced it, is that it had all different aspects involved. It had John Brakey, who we had on the show, who talks about the images that's, you know, casted and counted. John can tell you a lot about that right now, about the machines. Once they process them through, they take a picture. You know what I'm saying? Public record. Put that on the internet right there. Open source machine. That's the open source community. They get what they got. Hand-counted audit. All the hand counters get what they want. Everything is encompassed at one. Now, all these groups are not talking to each other, but that was a solution I saw, that what we need to do moving forward, that incorporated everybody's idea. Now you throw in David Weber when it comes to the mail-in situation, you know what I'm saying? And also, you know, I'm a big believer that you should go do your civic duty and you should go and vote. But if it takes 7 hours to vote, I can't blame you for not going. I like Clayton Curtis's idea that for every hour you wait, in addition to 60 minutes, as they got 60 minutes to get you in and out, every hour after that, the county has to pay you $100 or $200. They'll straighten out that shit real quick, fam. They'll make it very mellifluous if it's going to cost them money. So there's so many things we can put in play to really fix our elections. We could be the gold standard. We have all the knowledge here, you know, to be the gold standard of elections. Really.
They don't want it.
They don't want it. They want this thing. They want the waters muddied on purpose. So why? And the Democrats, they've had all these ways that they could fix these elections. And instead, since 2016, fam, we've gone backwards. We haven't gone forward. We've gone backwards. And it's just crazy that Donald Trump getting cheated is the first thing to put all this stuff into the flashlight, the sunlight, if you may.